Vanakkam. I'm Vayoni Dimel. This is Boston Lanka News, bringing you news, views and entertainment from Boston and USA. The US government prosecutors charged Dzhokhar Sarnaev for the Boston Marathon bombings in an impromptu hearing on Monday in his hospital room, accusing him of crimes that could carry the death penalty if he is convicted. The Boston Marathon bombing was the first successful large-scale bombing in the post-September 11, 2001 era. The Boston attack killed 3 people and wounded more than 250 others. 10 people lost limbs from the bombs packed with nails and ball bearings. Boston area hospitals still treating at least 40 people, with 2 listed in critical condition. The whole world joined with Boston in condemning terrorism and supporting the victims and their families. Sri Lanka's Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations, Major General Shavendra Silva.
On behalf of the people of Sri Lanka, I would like to express our grief to the people of Boston and the people of United States on the incident happened a week ago in Boston. And we would like to tell that we as Sri Lankans, we can feel the shock and the shock absorbed by the people of Boston, especially at the incident, at the site, and thereafter the other people. Therefore, we would like to tell that we Sri Lankans will always be with the people of United States at the time of grief, and we will never leave you at a time like this, and you can assure that we are there with you. Also, I would like to express the condolences to the families of the victims. And these families must understand that their loved ones have sacrificed their lives, not just after the incident that we saw, due to very efficient and effective police force, they managed to apprehend the suspects. And because of that, that is why I say that these victims of the incidents have sacrificed their yesterday for the tomorrow of people of Boston and as a whole to the people of United States. Why I say that is because if not for this incident, there would have been maybe it would have been a bigger disaster, and there would have been more deaths and casualties. So that's why I say that we should salute the victims, and because of them, we had managed to prevent a bigger disaster, maybe in any part of the country. And also we have to remember, I heard that about 14 limbs have lost. There are innocent civilians who have lost some parts of the body due to this incident. They also have sacrificed just especially for the people who are living and people and also for the country. And I wish them a speedy recovery at this moment. Now, when it comes to this incident, I feel that we as Sri Lankans, we feel the feelings of the people at the time of the incident, because way back in our country, we have faced similar situations over a period of 3 decades, especially improvised explosive devices like what happened in Boston. Through such incidents, the disasters occurred, especially targeting civilians. In our country, we have seen enough. So therefore, we feel the pulse of that, and that's why we joined with the people of Boston and United States, and especially using less explosives with nut and bolt culture was invaded by uh, LTTE, uh, Tamil Tigers in Sri Lanka.
We know that 9/11 changed the world on how the world should deal with terrorism. Ambassador, as you said, Sri Lanka had experienced this type of terrorist acts done by LTT for 30 years. When you saw the Boston bomb explosion and its aftermath, are there any similarities that you saw? You think this incident will galvanize the world more against terrorism?
One thing we have to remember that with this small amount of explosive, a bigger disaster can make a bigger disaster to happen. So that's why we feel very much. And now another thing that what I saw that after the incident, especially at the time of the recovery or apprehended the suspects, we saw how people of Boston and also people of United States were very happy of arresting these suspects. A similar situation was there with us also in our country. The day that we eradicated terrorism from our soil in our country, way back in 2009, our people also felt the same thing, that yes, terrorism is over. So therefore, this is something to be observed and think about this situation. I would like to appeal for the people who are still trying to give the life for this dead terrorist group of LTT. There are some people, some groups of people, some organizations, maybe up to the extent of countries, who are sympathizing with the sympathizers and the supporters of dead terrorist LTT organization. What has happened, but at least thinking of the Boston situation, now people will realize they are the people, terrorists. This is a terrorist group that who is dead and gone, but their techniques of improvised explosive devices, IEDs, are still remaining. Considering that, I think those who are supporting to date to LTT or for their supporters must think and rethink whether they should support the dead LTT organization or their supporters, because they have left a culture of small explosive with nut and bolts culture, and this can damage mankind around the world, irrespective of which country. So therefore, I once again appeal those who are supporting or sympathizing with this terror group, they should think again whether they should support anymore, at least from today onwards. And especially for people who are pointing the finger to the leadership of Sri Lanka or to the officers who are responsible of eradicating terrorism as war criminals, they should think whether they should be considered them as war criminals or they should commend them for eradicating terrorism from whatever the country.
I'm sure you have had many experiences being close to bomb explosions when you were a commanding officer in the battlefield in Sri Lanka. When you saw the images of innocent people of Boston and the terror in their faces, what thoughts came to your mind?
Now, at the time of the incident that we saw, the shock that how people were shocked soon after the incident. Now, this shock came to the people of Boston or the people who were there at the marathon only after the incident. Now, in Sri Lanka, we saw this over a period of 3 decades. And until even in Boston, until such time the suspects were arrested, you'd have seen that what amount of shock and what of panic that was there within that area. Now, in Sri Lanka, these things were happening day to day. LTT was exploding, IEDs all over the country, and people were in a fear. People of Sri Lanka was dying without dying for over a period of 30 years of these explosions. So that is why we feel when such a thing happens, we feel what is the feelings of people who face this situation. I myself have faced a bomb attack, and I had faced enough explosions close to me. So, of course, I am a soldier. I can at least absorb, but just think about innocent civilians who get caught to this type of things, and they have to face these things. Why? Just because of these terror attacks. So that's why, especially people of Sri Lanka are with the people of Boston and the United States, because we feel much more than anyone else.
Are there any lessons the US, or for that matter the world, can learn from Sri Lanka to combat terrorism more efficiently?
I think people who are interested of improvised explosive devices, how these things are happening, Sri Lanka is a real unique things to learn from Sri Lanka. So they must think about that without trying to isolate Sri Lanka on this defeating terrorism. They must consider as to how things have fought, how these improvised explosives, not only these pressure cookers, there have been a lot of similar things back in Sri Lanka. There are enough lessons to learn from Sri Lanka.
Ambassador, as you know, Channel 4 did another program recently showing that Sri Lankan military committed atrocities during the final phase of the conflict. They think the political and military leaders who led the war against LTT should be tried as war criminals. What do you have to say to all those allegations?
Yeah, this is what I said. Actually, these are the groups must now think. Of course, they would have brought enough allegations, accusations, but think about the Boston situation, what happened in Boston. Is it something that these two suspects have learned on their own? No, this is something that we learned from a terrorist group like Sri Lanka, where they invaded such IEDs, where they need only very little amount of explosives and improvise some balls, nuts into that, and thereafter have a big disaster. So therefore, these organizations, like even people like Channel 4, must now rethink whether they should give a life to this dead organization once again by trying to bring these things like that. We are not war criminals. We are the people who, the Sri Lankans, from the leadership down to everyone, all the citizens got together and defeated terrorism. And if this terrorist group was not defeated in Sri Lanka way back in 2009, we would have seen some more techniques would have come to the world. And they who invaded the suicide jackets. So if they were living for another few years or decades, we would have seen some more things coming. And one organization can go. We can eradicate a terrorist group, what we did in Sri Lanka, but their techniques will never go. Their methodologies will never go. So these are the things that they have left and gone. Therefore, not only Channel 4, all those who are supporting or sympathizing with this terror group must, I think, rethink whether they should do that, because this is a damage to not only for Sri Lankans, but to the entire mankind.
Last week, Ambassador, we also saw the huge explosion in a fertilizer factory in Waco, Texas, that killed about 15 people and injured more than 100 people. Do you have any insights on that explosion?
Yeah, of course. Now, this is also another thing that one must consider. Now, it's a fertilizer factory, but you'd have seen the damage that caused by that explosion. Now, my memories goes back to Sri Lankan history of 3 decades of terrorism. In Sri Lanka, the government, successive governments at that time banned this taking of urea to the LTT held areas at that time. And people who are even now shouting or trying to find faults with Sri Lanka, at that time also some groups, organizations, NGOs, maybe even countries were finding fault or trying to intervene and say that we should not ban this type of fertilizer, which should send to North freely. But why we did that at that time was we knew that this type of fertilizer can also make a bit of an explosion. So when they don't have explosive, these things can be made use of for this type of to create an explosion. So therefore, it is important that at least now, after long years, at least now to understand why in Sri Lanka we actually restricted, especially certain fertilizers going up to LTT or terrorist held areas.
That concludes our news edition. We meet you again with another news edition of News, Views and Entertainment from Boston and USA. Till then, goodbye.